Welcome back to the SEN WA studio out here at Optus Stadium. Going to be sunny in Perth today, building to a high top of 33 degrees. The Fremantle Dockers rounded out their pre-season preparation with a 19-point win over the Melbourne Demons in Mandurah on Sunday afternoon. Jai Miss is very happy that the pre-season is over. He played 2 games and had to play on Stephen May both times, but he looks forward to a big season after a big summer in the gym. And Joe Brierty, the Fremantle Dockers Executive General Manager of Footy, joins us on the show to talk about the pre-season and the upcoming season. Joe, welcome.
Yeah, Duff, thanks for having us, mate.
Joe, big news yesterday with the signature of Andrew Brayshaw on a 6-year deal. It kind of completes a set you've got of key players signed on long-term contracts.
Yeah, look, it was really pleasing to have that locked away, and ongoing talks with Andy and his management have been positive, as we've said, and he has a really important role, not only on field, but the way he's grown as a leader, and to see him invested in the club and looking to be a Docker for life is great for our club and that commitment. And I think seeing that across the board with a number of players that just probably see where we think we're going as a club, and they want to do it together and be a part of that first group, so obviously achieve premiership success. So, fantastic for the whole playing group and the club and our members that Andy signed on. So
the headline in the West Australian today was locked and loaded. Do you feel like you're locked and loaded for a serious tilt at it?
Yeah, look, we have high expectations internally for sure. We think we've got a cohort of players that can enable us to contend, and you need a lot to go your way to get the ultimate success. But we need to get back to playing finals footy consistently, and that's where it starts. And I think that consistency is the important piece. At times last year, we felt like we had a game in really good order, but I guess in key moments or patches of games where we lost momentum, we weren't able to wrestle it back, and that occurred a little bit over the latter rounds of the year. So I think from our perspective, the maturity of this group and where we're going, and I guess a balance across different roles across the ground, Wolsey's done a great job in setting this list up.
Speaking of David Walls, we've got a question that's come in on the Harvey Norman Busselton text line from Anton. Obviously, probably thinking what a great job David Walls has done in building the list at the club. He says, does David Walls have a long-term contract at Freo?
Yes, Wallsey's locked in for a few more years for sure. So, look, he's spot on. And it's a credit to the team as well behind Wallsey in terms of what they've been able to build, even from a recruiting perspective, some of the later picks and getting those early picks is really important. Getting them right is really important as well. So it's been a focus of ours to continue to look at how we can add to our list in recent years, and acquiring Clark and Jackson and obviously Sharp as well, and more recently Bolton and Narkle. Just continuing to see where we need to add layers and depth. And I think that's a really important piece. Is probably felt as in recent years that had a really strong cohort of kind of 20 to 30 players, and now we're seeing kind of, I guess, that fight for spots kind of creeping out to that 30 to 35 players that are kind of trying to get into round one. So it's an important piece when you get competition for spots and that on-field performance.
You mentioned Luke Jackson. The story came out of nowhere over the weekend that Melbourne thought they were a chance of turning his head and getting him back to the Demons. How has the club viewed that story, and can we dismiss that story out of hand at this point, or do you never say never in footy?
Yeah, look, it's not a story that we've taken much notice of, to be honest. Luke's just been highly engaged, and he's obviously contracted for a really long time, and his pre-season's been probably his best one since he's arrived at the club, and I think we saw even his on-field performance and what he gives us from a list perspective as well. So I think from my perspective, I have regular dialogue with Luke across the entire pre-season, and his feedback to us is he couldn't be happier at the club and the way his footy's going. So I think, Duff, in our industry, there's always going to be headlines and conversations, and clubs are always looking at talented players at other clubs. But from our point of view, it's one where Luke's really happy and we're excited, and he's even seeing the commitment of guys like Andy, and he wants to be a part of this group going forward and achieving the success. He's supported the Dockers since he was a young kid, and that's why he came back to play with us.
I have made this comment on air today. It's funny how we're viewing Andrew Brayshaw as very much a one-club player because he's contracted to 2031, and there's speculation that Luke Jackson will leave at the end of the year and he's contracted until 2029. So it seems like different contracts are viewed in different ways in the AFL. Sean Darcy, obviously the unfortunate infection in that ankle means he's had to have the minor surgery. What's the prognosis on him and when do you expect him to be back?
He's kind of transitioning back into his running load now. He's been able to come out the back of that surgery, and he's probably into his fourth running session. He's running on field today, actually. So at this point in time, we've kind of earmarked him from anywhere from rounds 3 to 5 being available for selection. As we kind of talked about what that looks like in terms of his build and whether that's being available for AFL from the start or whether that's a build at the waffle level is something we'll continue to work through with Sean. But pleasingly, he's been able to continue his knee loading and the work and some of the exercises he kind of developed from his trip overseas, and he's feeling pain-free in that knee, which is the most important thing, and been able to build his strength. So he needs a good run at Shawnee. He's had a bit of frustrating kind of incidents here and there, and the infection was part of that, but he's really driven at the moment.
He looked in the best shape he's been in over his career, Joe, before the unfortunate infection.
Yeah, and that's continued. I think he's from his perspective just got a really clear understanding of what he needs to focus on, and I think that he's really applied himself, and he's coming into the prime of his career as a ruck. So I think he's really driven to be a part of what we want to build and the success going forward, and he doesn't want to miss out on that. So he's definitely buying into the work that he needs to do and being really diligent.
Fascinated by the way you used Jackson on the weekend in Sean Darcy's absence. He played primarily as a forward, but he appeared to spend significantly more time in the midfield and on the ball. Is that what we can expect to see in rounds 1 and 2 with Sean absent?
Yeah, definitely look at the flexibility in the matchup inside, and obviously Liam Reedy played on the weekend as well. But Jacko definitely spent some time as even a midfielder, and he did that a little bit in the All-Stars game, and he's done that throughout pre-season and some intra-clubs as well. So we know the talent he is when the ball hits the ground, and from an aerial perspective, he's taken some big steps around the ground too. So I think from Luke's point of view, it's definitely the flexibility that it provides, and as you alluded to, kind of spending some more time up on ball, whether that's in the ruck or playing as a rover, is something that we've been able to build into his game and then create some secondary roles. And I think he's excited by that, and I think it gives us that flexibility that we're chasing, and we'll kind of formalise what that looks like going into Geelong. And it'll be, a horses for courses in terms of the rucks you come up against. Gorney's probably one of the better rucks going around in recent years, so having the dual kind of tandem rucks worked pretty well.
The one red flag that came out of that game was the stoppages. I think it was 45-27, the final stat on stoppages. We know Melbourne have a big, powerful midfield and had a really gun crew in there with obviously Gawn, Petrarca, Oliver and Jack Viney. Hayden Young, first question, when do you expect him to be back? And second question, just making sure you don't get caught too small in the midfield until Hayden Young and Nathan Fyfe are back and available. How do you go around that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost with Youngie, it's a complex one in that where the location of the strain is in, an area that's considered high risk within the hamstring. It's still a very low-grade injury, so the build's really, really important. Unfortunately, had a minor reoccurrence a couple of weeks back that set him back a few weeks, and probably the next fortnight will tell us when he's going to be available, including an exact timeline on it. He's been ruled out of round 1, but we expect to see him in the early rounds of the season. Probably be able to give greater clarity, as I said, probably next week. But outside of that, you're right in terms of the makeup of our midfield and what the best fit is. And we've seen Johnson go through there, and O'Driscoll and O'Meara at times, and Erasmus came on late on the weekend. But even the flexibility, I alluded to Jacko and Bolton going through there at times as well is a valuable thing for us. So I think there were aspects of the weekend where we're really pleased and with components of our stoppage work in the first half, and in the second half it definitely fell away, and Gawn and Oliver and Petrarca were able to get on top and really control the game, and obviously how they're able to shift the ball at different times. So there's definitely some feedback for us and making sure we can get those things right in terms of our execution of our roles around stoppage for sure.
Nathan Fyfe, back on the track over the last week or so. What's the timeline for him in terms of being available for AFL selection?
Yeah, the plan is that he's available for selection for round one. He obviously is coming off a low base at the moment, so he's still continuing to build. So he's gone into the main training group today, and the plan is for him to complete full training on Saturday, and then obviously then main training next week. So what that looks like in terms of where he's playing is to be worked through. But he's as I said, he's only kind of transitioning back into main training now. So we'll continue to have that dialogue with Matt and see how he continues to progress over the next week. But he'd be available for obviously selection, and whether that's playing at Peel or whether there's a role for him at AFL levels, we'll work through that.
Murphy Reid is a player that's put his hand up and looks like if you were a betting man at this stage, you'd probably bet on him being in your team for round one. Tell us about his growth and what's impressed you about him.
Yeah, highly touted by our recruiting team, definitely in the draft, and we were probably surprised that he was able to slip through to, I think, pick 16. Just his composure and his use by hand and is definitely something that excites a lot of people for someone of his age group, and doesn't seem to get overly phased about too much, Murph. So he's fit in really well, and I think he's a bit of a sponge at the moment, trying to learn from Andy and Caleb and develop his craft. He's obviously playing more of that high half-forward role, but went through the midfield at times on the weekend. So I think for him, he's definitely put his name up there for sure in the way he's gone about it in the All-Stars and the game on the weekend. And I think he'll continue to develop other aspects of his game. And the speed of the game, it was fairly hot down in Mandurah as well. It would have been a fair bit of fatigue kicking in. So he's around the mark for sure. And I think that's probably an element of strength in bringing Bolton in now, is that you've got Frederick, Sikowski, Bolton. Sonny's had a really, really good pre-season in the last couple of hit-outs, and you've got Reid and then the likes of Sturt and Simpson as well. So there's definitely competition for spots in that area, but Murphy's definitely putting his case forward for selection for round one.
If you're looking for a big-bodied midfield, Nathan O'Driscoll kind of fits that bill, and he looks like he's taken a step forward, and he was good again on the weekend. Really broke lines, kicked a couple of goals, and looked in probably as good as he's looked throughout his career.
It's just so pleasing for Nate as well, because he's really invested. It was a frustrating year for him last year. We had a blood clot in his knee, and then had some further issues on the back of that, just due to the size of the incision he actually had to have. So seeing him build up last year and kind of go inside at waffle level, and then coming in and playing a role at AFL level, whether that was tagging or jumping out onto a wing. You're right, his size and his shape and his speed and his ability to change angles and break lines can be quite damaging, and he tends to get forward, and his aerial is a strength, and he's finishing his work in front of goal too. So I think that we're really pleased with how he's gone about it this pre-season, and he deserves the credit for the way he's investing in his footy. And I think that, again, as I talked about earlier, that maturity and him understanding what he needs to do during the week to get himself right. So definitely think that he's ready to go, and it's exciting for him to see how he's performed on the weekend.
One more before I let you go, Joe. Shay Bolton, how has he settled in, and what have you made of his form on the weekend against the D's? There was a trademark Bolton goal at one stage, and a bit of Jackson input into that as well, with a soft drop from a boundary throw in the forward pocket, but that was typical Shay, the half chance into a goal.
Yeah, I think probably the most exciting piece is that he kind of takes the players around him along with him as well. He's happy to bring other players into the game, and I think we know he provides that X factor, but his football nous and intelligence is at a really high level, and I think that the players around him are only going to flourish with having him in the forward half. I think on the weekend we had 45 inside 50s and scored at 64% on entry, so that would have you kind of up at the top of the competition in terms of scoring on entry, which is great. We want to get the ball in there more and lock it in our forward half. But he's fit in really well. Obviously developed a really close relationship with Sonny, and has a connection Quinton Narkle, but across the playing group, I think even our mids are loving him popping into the midfield at different times and what he provides. It opens up the game by hand and foot. So, looking forward to it. It's obviously going to be very exciting for he and his family and his partner Hasina to head over to Geelong and pull on the purple in the first official game for round one. So, we've been really happy with the way in which he's arrived at the club and connecting with the group.
Joe, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. We look forward to speaking to you as the season unfolds, and hopefully there's big, successful things ahead of the Fremantle Dockers.
No worries, Duff. Much appreciated.
Joe Brierty, he is the Fremantle Dockers Executive General Manager of Footy. We'll be back with more after the break.